The Halloween Dare. In the small, sleepy town of Maplewood, Halloween had always been a grand celebration. Children roamed the streets in costumes, neighbors held bonfires, and haunted houses cropped up on nearly every block. But this year, something was different. There was an unusual chill in the air, a sense of something darker lurking beneath the costumes and decorations, as if the town itself was hiding something sinister. For 4 high school seniors, Jenna, Mark, Elise, and Tyler, Halloween meant one thing: the dare for years. The dare was a rite of passage in Maplewood, a challenge few teens were brave enough to face. It involved venturing into the old Maplewood Manor, a decrepit estate that had stood on the edge of town for over 50 years. According to legend, the Blackwood family, the original owners, had vanished without a trace on Halloween night many decades ago. Since then, the mansion had been left abandoned, slowly rotting under the weight of its dark past. They said the mansion was haunted, and every Halloween night, if you were quiet enough, you could hear the whispers of the Blackwoods roaming the halls, eternally searching for a way out of their endless night. Locals told stories of seeing shadowy figures at the windows, and even hearing the eerie sound of a piano playing by itself. The mansion drew the curious and the reckless, but none ever stayed for long. Jenna, the ringleader, convinced her friends to face the dare. It was their last Halloween together before graduation, and they wanted to go out with a bang. As they approached the mansion, it loomed against the dark sky, its windows shattered like broken teeth and its roof sagging under years of neglect. The air around it seemed colder, sharper, as if the mansion itself were warning them to stay away. Undeterred, they pushed through the rusted gate, which groaned as it swung open, almost like a cry of pain. Leaves crunched beneath their feet, and the wind whipped through the bare trees, whispering like voices just out of earshot. When they reached the front door, Jenna took a deep breath and turned to her friends with a grin. "All right, here's the deal. We each pick a different part of the house, 1 hour inside, and then we meet back here. Whoever leaves first owes the rest of us a pizza." Tyler laughed, though there was a nervous edge to it. "Deal," he said, pulling out his flashlight. One by one, they entered the mansion, their footsteps echoing in the hollow silence. Inside, the air was thick with dust and decay. The floorboards creaked beneath them, and the smell of mold filled their noses. The grand staircase rose before them, draped in cobwebs, leading up into the shadowy depths of the house. They exchanged uneasy glances but held their resolve. As they separated, the mansion seemed to close in around them, swallowing them into its depths. Jenna headed toward the kitchen, the one place she thought might be least terrifying. But as she entered, she felt a wave of cold wash over her. Her flashlight illuminated ancient pots and pans hanging from the ceiling, coated in layers of grime. A faint metallic scent hung in the air, and she felt a chill down her spine. Just as she was about to dismiss it as her imagination, she heard a soft clinking sound like silverware tapping together. Her heart pounded as she followed the sound to a dusty knife rack on the counter. The knives were all intact except for one. A large butcher knife was missing, leaving an empty slot in the rack. Jenna's stomach twisted with dread. As she turned to leave, she heard a dragging sound behind her, slow and deliberate, as if someone or something was scraping a heavy object across the floor. She swung her flashlight around, her pulse racing. But the room was empty. Her flashlight flickered, and in the brief moment of darkness, she thought she saw a figure, a shadow with empty eyes, standing in the doorway, holding a glinting blade. But when the light returned, it was gone. Trembling, she backed out of the room, keeping her flashlight trained on the doorway, half expecting the shadow to reappear. Mark, the most skeptical of the group, had chosen the basement. He joked about finding the hidden treasure of the Blackwoods, though his voice shook as he descended the creaky stairs. The air grew colder with each step, and a damp, earthy smell filled his nose, making him wrinkle it in disgust. At the bottom of the stairs, he swung his flashlight across the basement, revealing a maze of old furniture, broken crates, and forgotten relics from a time long past. As he walked deeper into the shadows, he noticed something strange: footprints, fresh and wet, leading away from him down a narrow corridor. His brow furrowed. The floor was covered in dust, and no one had been here for decades, right? With a mixture of curiosity and fear, he followed the footprints. They led to a door at the far end of the basement. Just as he reached for the handle, he heard a voice, a faint, raspy whisper that sent chills down his spine. It sounded close, too close, like someone was breathing directly into his ear. He spun around, but no one was there. The whisper came again, this time more urgent, almost pleading. "Help me. Help us." Mark backed away, his heart racing, but as he turned to leave, the basement door slammed shut, trapping him in darkness. His flashlight flickered, and in the dim light, he saw a face staring at him from the shadows, a face pale and lifeless, with eyes that glowed like embers. He stumbled backward, his breath coming in gasps as the face drew closer, fading only when he reached the stairs. Elise and Tyler found themselves drawn to the second-floor bedrooms. Elise entered a room that seemed untouched by time, with a bed neatly made and old, dusty dolls lined up on a shelf. She felt a prickling on the back of her neck, like she was being watched. Her flashlight passed over the dolls, and for a brief moment she thought one of them moved, its head turning to follow her. She took a shaky step closer, her heart pounding, and realized that every single doll was now facing her, their eyes glassy and unblinking, as if they were alive. A soft, childlike giggle echoed in the room, and the door slammed shut behind her. She ran to it, yanking the handle, but it wouldn't budge. As she pounded on the door, she heard the giggle again, closer this time, as if someone or something was standing right behind her. Meanwhile, Tyler entered the master bedroom, a grand but decaying space. A large mirror hung on the wall, covered in dust and grime. He felt uneasy, as if something in the room were watching him. He wiped a patch of dust from the mirror, and what he saw made his blood run cold. Staring back at him was his own reflection, but twisted and unnatural, his eyes were hollow, and his face was contorted in an expression of terror he didn't recognize. He stumbled back, the image burning into his mind. The reflection in the mirror grinned, a wide, unnatural smile, before reaching out a hand toward him. Tyler bolted from the room, but the eerie feeling stayed with him, as though he'd left a part of himself behind in that cursed mirror. An hour passed, and Jenna, Mark, and Elise regrouped at the front entrance, all visibly shaken. But Tyler was nowhere to be found. They called his name, their voices echoing through the empty halls, but only silence answered. Retracing his steps, they searched the house, their flashlights darting nervously over every shadow. In the master bedroom, they found his flashlight lying on the ground, still turned on. But of Tyler, there was no sign, only a faint whisper that drifted through the room, sending chills down their spines. "One of us will stay." Panicked, they fled the house, stumbling out into the cold night. When they reached the gate, they looked back at the mansion one last time and saw a new portrait hanging by the door, a faded, ghostly image of Tyler, his eyes hollow and dark. Every Halloween since, Maplewood Manor has called for new souls, adding to its collection of lost spirits. And each year, another face appears on the walls of that cursed house, waiting, watching, for the next one brave or foolish enough to enter.